Hong Kong is one of the most vibrant and prosperous cities in the world, a global hub for finance, trade, and culture. It is a place where the East meets the West, where tradition and modernity coexist, and where millions of people enjoy a high standard of living and a wide range of freedoms. But behind the glittering facade of Hong Kong lies a dark and disturbing reality of poverty, oppression, and violence. Housing crisis, poverty, inequality, and political unrest is now the order of the day. How do the people of Hong Kong cope and fight in this urban hell?
Before moving here, my health wasn't as bad. Now my health is getting worse.
Join us as we expose the Hong Kong that the mainstream media and the authorities don't want you to see. This is the dark side of Hong Kong, the real-life dystopia. Hong Kong is a special administrative region of China, located on the southern coast of the country. It consists of a mainland area and more than 200 islands, covering a total area of about 1,100 square kilometers. With a population of about 7.5 million people, it's one of the most densely populated places on Earth. Hong Kong has a complex and turbulent history, shaped by its colonial past, its handover to China, and its recent protests. For over 150 years, Hong Kong was a British colony, until it was handed over to China in 1997. During that time, the colony underwent a remarkable transformation from a small fishing village to a global metropolis. How did this happen? Let's take a look at some of the key points and events that influenced Hong Kong's past and present. First is the Opium Wars and the cession of Hong Kong. In the 19th century, Britain and China clashed over trade and sovereignty, especially over the issue of opium, a highly addictive drug that Britain imported from India and sold to China. China tried to stop the opium trade, but Britain resisted, leading to two wars known as the Opium Wars. As a result of the wars, China was forced to cede Hong Kong to Britain in three stages: Hong Kong Island in 1842, the Kowloon Peninsula in 1860, and the New Territories in 1898. The New Territories were leased for 99 years, which meant that they would expire in 1997. This set the stage for Hong Kong's future return to China. Secondly, there was the influx of refugees and capital from China. Throughout the 20th century, Hong Kong received a large number of immigrants from mainland China, especially during the periods of turmoil and instability, such as the civil wars, the revolutions, and the invasions. A significant wave of immigration occurred after the Second World War, when the Communist Party took over China in 1949, and many people fled to Hong Kong, fearing persecution and oppression. These immigrants were businessmen and entrepreneurs who transferred their capital and networks to Hong Kong, creating a vibrant and diverse economy. Thirdly, there was the policy of positive non-interventionism, which was implemented by the late financial secretary John Calperthwaite in the 1960s. It meant that the government would not interfere with the market forces or plan the allocation of resources, but would only provide the necessary infrastructure and regulation to facilitate economic growth and stability. This policy led to rapid and sustained economic development, as it fostered a competitive, efficient, and flexible economy that could adapt to changing circumstances and opportunities. Hong Kong became a major trading port and financial center, attracting foreign investment and trade. Hong Kong also became known for its low taxes, free trade, and open market. However, this policy also had some negative consequences, such as a lack of social welfare, education, a high level of poverty, inequality, pollution, and a housing crisis. The housing crisis was majorly caused by a limited supply of land, as the British government did not release much land for housing, especially in the New Territories. Another factor was the high demand for housing, as Hong Kong's population grew rapidly due to natural increase and immigration, and as people's income and living standards improved. They sought better and larger accommodation. The result was a huge gap between the supply and demand of housing, which drove up the prices and rents of housing to astronomical levels, making it unaffordable for many people, especially the low-income and working-class families. The fourth point is the uncertainty and controversy over Hong Kong's political status and future. In the 1980s, as the expiration of the lease of the New Territories in 1997 approached, the British and Chinese governments negotiated the Sino-British Joint Declaration, which agreed that Hong Kong would be returned to China in 1997 under the principle of one country, two systems. This meant that Hong Kong would retain a high degree of autonomy and enjoy its own legal, economic, and political systems, as well as its own currency, passport, and flag for 50 years until 2047. The Joint Declaration also promised that Hong Kong would have universal suffrage and human rights, as enshrined in the Basic Law, the Mini Constitution of Hong Kong, which was drafted by a committee appointed by Beijing and adopted in 1990. However, in the past 2 decades, Hong Kong has faced increasing interference and pressure from Beijing, which has eroded its autonomy and violated the terms of the Joint Declaration and the Basic Law. Many Hong Kongers have felt disillusioned and betrayed by the broken promises and the lack of democracy and accountability. This has sparked a series of massive and violent protests, starting from the 2014 Umbrella Movement to the 2019 Anti-Extradition Bill movement to the 2020 National Security Law. These protests have been met with harsh crackdowns and arrests by the police and the government, as well as intimidation and censorship by the pro-Beijing camp. These events have polarized the society and created a deep sense of distrust and resentment among the people. Hong Kong is often regarded as one of the most successful and prosperous economies in the world, thanks to its free market, low taxes, and open trade. Hong Kong has a GDP per capita of about $46,000, ranking among the top 20 in the world. However, there's a huge gap between the rich and the poor. The top 10% of households earn 44 times more than the bottom 10%. Hong Kong also has a poverty rate of 20%, which means that 1 in 5 people live below the poverty line, which is set at about $700 per month for a single person. One of the most vulnerable and marginalized groups in Hong Kong are the elderly, who make up about 18% of the population. Many of them live in poverty and have to rely on meager pensions or social welfare. Some of them have to work long hours in low-paying and physically demanding jobs, such as cleaning, security, or construction. And some of them have no choice at all but to scavenge for waste, such as cardboard and cans, in the streets and sell them for a few cents per kilogram. This is a common sight in Hong Kong, where thousands of elderly people, mostly women, roam the city with their trolleys and bags, looking for anything that can be recycled. Another group that suffers from poverty and inequality in Hong Kong are the low-income and working-class families, who live in appalling and overcrowded conditions. The country is facing a serious housing crisis, affecting millions of people. Additionally, Hong Kong has the world's most expensive and unaffordable housing market, with an average price of $18,722 per square meter, according to the Global Property Guide. The average price of a house per square meter was $2,330 in America, $4,521 in Germany, and $1,111 in South Africa as of 2020. This means that a house in Hong Kong is about 8 times more expensive than a house in America, 4 times more expensive than a house in Germany, and 17 times more expensive in South Africa. How about the incomes? According to Statista, the median monthly household income in Hong Kong was 27,650 Hong Kong dollars in 2022. A typical household in Hong Kong would need to save about 44 years of income to buy a house, while a typical household in America would need about 6 years, in Germany about 10 years, and in South Africa about 11 years. This shows that Hong Kong has the most expensive and affordable housing market among the countries in the comparison. The solution to this housing crisis is the establishment of cage homes. They are metal cages that are stacked on top of each other in a room, each measuring about 1.5 square meters. Subdivided flats are apartments that are partitioned into smaller units, each measuring about 4 to 12 square meters. These types of housing are often cramped, dirty, unsafe, and lack basic facilities such as ventilation, windows, toilets, or kitchens. They are also prone to fire hazards, pests, and diseases. According to a 2016 survey, there are about 200,000 people living in cage homes and subdivided flats in Hong Kong, paying about $200 to $500 per month for a space that is smaller than a parking lot. Hong Kong is under threat as its dark side grows darker. The gap between the rich and the poor widens. The elderly and the poor suffer. The young and the restless rebel. The economy is declining, the environment is deteriorating, health and education systems are failing, and the society is divided, polarized, and traumatized. It is a reality that many Hong Kongers face every day that many outsiders ignore or deny. This is the consequences of the broken promises, the lack of democracy, and the lack of accountability. Hong Kong may become just another Chinese city, and the fame and all the beauty that once adorned Hong Kong will gradually fade away.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits some loose shit, a stupid myth you choose.